What if everything you've ever worked for, the legacy, the company, the fortune, was left to someone else? Lexi Morgan sat in silence as her father's will was read, watching her sister Isabel take everything from her, the business, the property, and every asset. It was exactly what she had always expected. But her mother, who had been dismissed as a simple housewife, had been building an empire of her own, one Lexi inherited, worth far more than anything their father left behind. Isabel thought she won. Lexi was about to show her just how wrong she was. Stay tuned to see how Lexi reclaims her future. My channel's struggling, so if you're intrigued, please comment 1 to help me out. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Subscribe to see how it ends, and I wish you all good health. Mr. Abernathy's voice was calm and measured as he read my father's will. Each word seemed to shrink the mahogany-paneled office, the weight of finality pressing down on me with suffocating force. I sat motionless, my hands folded in my lap, while Isabel's smirk stretched wider. The sunlight streaming through the window caught the diamonds on her bracelet, the one Dad had given her last year, yet another reminder of his unshakable favoritism. At 32, I was witnessing the culmination of a lifetime of my father choosing her over me, just as I had always expected. The property at 1542 Pine Grove Avenue, 789 Lakeview Drive, and the summer home in Newport, all to Isabel Morgan Pierce. Mr. Abernathy continued, adjusting his glasses. The family business, Morgan Communications, including all assets and subsidiaries, also to Isabel Morgan Pierce. Isabel leaned back in her chair, practically glowing with triumph. She had dressed the part, a sleek black designer dress, her nails impeccably manicured, her hair styled with precision. She was everything my father had valued: ambitious, obedient, married to the right man, a mother to the right children. I, on the other hand, had disappointed him at every turn. A marine biologist instead of a corporate successor. Divorced from the man he'd chosen for me after I refused to tolerate his affairs. Carving out my own life and success, one that didn't fit into his narrow definition of achievement. "Is that all?" Isabel asked, her voice dripping with false sympathy. She turned to me with a practiced pout. "Oh, Lexi, I'm so sorry, but you know how Dad felt about your choices." I met her gaze steadily, refusing to flinch. "I'm well aware, Jess." Mr. Abernathy cleared his throat. "There is a small personal effects account set aside for Olivia, containing family photographs and some jewelry from your grandmother." Isabel let out a sharp laugh. "Well, at least you got the family photos. Not sure where you'll put them in that tiny apartment of yours." I rose, smoothing the fabric of my dress. "Are we done here, Mr. Abernathy?" The lawyer nodded, clearly relieved I wasn't making a scene. He had probably seen enough inheritance battles to know they rarely ended without drama. But I wasn't going to give Isabel the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. "Lexi!" she called out as I reached the door. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're taken care of. Maybe there's even a position for you at Morgan Communications, something entry-level, of course." I turned, offering her a tight smile. "That's generous, Jess, but I'll be just fine." The drive home was silent. The trees lining the road were painted in hues of gold and red. Mom had loved this time of year. She would have hated what Dad had done today. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabel. "Dinner tonight? We should talk about your future." I ignored it, just as I had been ignoring her hollow gestures since Dad's funeral last week. Instead, I parked in front of my small apartment, a charming craftsman house I'd bought mortgage-free 3 years ago. Inside, I went straight to my office, unlocked the bottom drawer, and retrieved a thick manila envelope. Mom had given it to me 2 years ago, just months before her unexpected passing. "Don't open this until after your father's gone," she had said, her frail hands gripping mine. "Promise me, Olivia." I had promised, and now, as I carefully peeled back the flap, I finally understood why. Inside were several documents, and at the top was a letter in Mom's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then your father is gone, and I'm sure he's done exactly what I feared. Your father was a brilliant businessman, but he never understood what truly mattered. He let his pride and outdated beliefs blind him to the most valuable thing he had, a daughter with vision, integrity, and the heart to change the world. What he also never realized is that while he was building Morgan Communications, I was building something of my own. 20 years ago, I began investing in sustainable technology companies. Your research on marine conservation inspired me. While your father dismissed your work as youthful idealism, I saw the future. These holdings have grown considerably, worth far more than Morgan Communications. Everything is in your name, transferred slowly and legally over the years through a network of investments your father never thought to question. Isabel can't touch a cent of it. Use it wisely, my darling girl. Make the difference I always knew you could. All my love. Mom. My hands trembled as I sifted through the documents. Stock certificates, investment portfolios, offshore accounts an empire quietly built under my father's nose. He'd never had a clue. The sheer scale of it made my head spin. My phone buzzed. Another text from Isabel. Seriously, Lexi, we need to talk about arrangements. Dad would have wanted us to work together. I picked up my phone, my pulse steady this time. I replied, You're right, we should talk. Why don't you come over tomorrow morning? I have something to show you. That night, I stayed up late poring over Mom's documents, marveling at her brilliance. She had invested in wind farms, solar technology, ocean cleanup initiatives, everything I had dedicated my career to. While Dad had dismissed my work as idealistic nonsense, Mom had been quietly securing the future. I thought about Isabel's expression in the lawyer's office, the way she'd always sided with Dad, always belittled my choices. Tomorrow, she would finally see the truth. At exactly 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Isabel stood on my doorstep in another designer outfit, her expression a calculated blend of concern and superiority. Her eyes flicked over my home, barely concealing her disdain. Oh, Lexi, she said, stepping inside, we really need to talk about getting you set up properly. This isn't the kind of place a Morgan should be living in. I ignored her and led her to the dining room. You're right, Jess, we do need to talk. There's something Mom wanted you to see. Her expression hardened slightly at the mention of Mom. They had never been close. Isabel was Dad's daughter through and through. What are you talking about? She asked. I gestured to the documents laid out on the table. Take a look. Isabel's manicured fingers hesitated before reaching for the papers. I watched as her smirk slowly faded, replaced by disbelief. Her hands began to shake. Her face drained of color, then flushed red with anger. This can't be real, she stammered. Mom was just a housewife. She didn't know anything about business. I almost laughed. Mom had spent years playing the role of the quiet, supportive wife, letting Dad and Isabel talk business while she built something bigger than either of them had ever imagined. Oh, it's real, I said, my voice steady. Every document is verified. Mom knew exactly what she was doing, and now, so do I. Isabel sank into a chair, her perfect posture faltering. But Dad's company, Morgan Communications, is yours. Just like Dad wanted, I finished for her. But Mom's legacy, that belongs to me, and it's worth about 10 times what you inherited. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the soft tapping of Isabel's nails against the table. She was recalibrating, strategizing, trying to find her footing in this new reality. Finally, she spoke, slipping into the smooth, persuasive tone she used in boardrooms. We could work together, pool our resources. Think about it, Lexi, with Morgan Communications infrastructure and these assets. No, Jess, I cut her off. That's not what Mom wanted, and it's not what I want. You got exactly what Dad intended for you. This is my path. Her mask slipped just for a second, revealing something raw beneath. Anger, maybe even fear, but she recovered quickly, standing abruptly, her heels clicking against the floor. You're making a mistake, she said coolly. I smiled. Maybe, but at least it's mine to make. Isabel stormed out, her expensive heels striking the pavement with every furious step. I exhaled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Mom had been right. Success isn't always loud. Sometimes the quietest players make the big moves. I had work to do because this wasn't just about wealth, it was about impact. And now I had the resources to make it happen. My phone buzzed one last time. Isabel, this isn't over, Lexi. I glanced at the locked safe in my office where copies of every document were stored. I thought of my lawyer, already making arrangements to secure Mom's legacy. I smiled as I typed my response. You're right, it's just beginning. The morning after Isabel's world-shattering visit, I woke up to 14 missed calls and a flood of texts from relatives. Word had spread quickly. Isabel had made sure of that. Olivia, this is Aunt Beatrice. How could you do this to your sister? Your father would be devastated. Cousin Michael here. Let's talk business. I have some great investment opportunities. Hey, cuz, remember when we used to play together as kids? We should catch up. I sighed, muting my phone. Mom had always taught me the value of boundaries, and today I had no time for family drama. There was work to do. My first stop was Harrison and Associates, the law firm that had quietly managed Mom's empire for years. Unlike Abernathy, Dad's pompous corporate attorney, Veronica Harrison was sharp, modern, and unshakable. Right on schedule, Veronica said as I stepped into her office. Your mother predicted Isabel would try to contest this within days of finding out. I settled into the chair across from her desk. What's our next move? Veronica pulled out a thick folder, her lips curving slightly. Your mother left very specific instructions. She knew Isabel would try to challenge the holdings, likely claiming your mother was mentally unfit when she made these arrangements. I scoffed. That sounds exactly like Isabel. Which is why your mother built an airtight case. Veronica's eyes gleamed as she slid a stack of documents toward me. She spent years documenting everything. Business meetings, investment decisions, even recordings of conversations with financial advisors. It's all here. Your mother wasn't just running an empire, she was playing the long game. A slow, admiring smile spread across my face. Mom had been 10 steps ahead of everyone. And there's more, Veronica continued, pulling out another document. Your mother also left instructions regarding Morgan Communications. She suspected your father's company might try to obstruct some of her environmental initiatives, so she put certain measures in place. As Veronica laid out the details, I felt something settle in my chest, not just relief, but clarity. Mom hadn't just left me wealth, she had left me a strategy. Everything goes to your sister. My next stop was the University Laboratory of Dr. David Lee, one of the leading experts in ocean pollution prevention. According to Mom's files, she had been anonymously funding his work for years. The lab was nothing like Morgan Communications' polished glass-walled offices. There were no marble floors, no extravagant art pieces. Instead, it was lined with linoleum tiles, cluttered workbenches, and scientific posters. It felt more like home to me than Dad's world ever had. Dr. Lee's eyes widened when I introduced myself. Your mother was our anonymous benefactor? We've been trying to thank her for years. She believed in your work, I said, placing a contract on his desk. I want to increase the funding. It's time to elevate your research. As we discussed the expansion plans, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Isabel this time through email. You can't just walk away from family responsibility. Dad built this legacy for both of us. I stared at the words, contemplating Dad's legacy. Cutthroat business tactics, environmental neglect, manipulation. Then I thought about Mom's, sustainable innovation, careful planning, quiet strength. The choice was clear. That evening, as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed Isabel's Mercedes parked in front of my house. She was sitting on my porch steps, her perfect hair slightly tousled, her expression unreadable. As I approached, she stood up. We need to talk. Really talk, Lexi. I unlocked my door and let her follow me inside. This time, unlike yesterday, she didn't comment on my house or my furniture. I spoke to the board at Morgan Communications today, she began, pacing across my living room. Our stock dropped when news about Mom's sustainable technology holdings leaked. Investors are nervous. I leaned against the arm of my couch, crossing my arms. Sounds like your problem. Isabel stopped and spun to face me. It's an us problem, she snapped. This is our family's reputation we're talking about. Do you have any idea what people are saying? That Dad was so focused on grooming me for leadership he missed what Mom was building right under his nose? They're calling him short-sighted, outdated. They're not wrong, I replied, unmoved. Isabel stopped pacing, her face flushed with frustration. How can you be so cold? This is Dad we're talking about. Yes, the same Dad who cut me out of his will because I refused to follow his blueprint. The same Dad who mocked my work, dismissed my choices. I held her gaze firmly. The same Dad who taught you to do the same. Isabel flinched. I never… But she trailed off, because we both knew the truth. She had laughed right alongside him when he belittled my research, when he mocked Mom's idealistic nonsense. Sit down, Jess, I said quietly. Let me show you something. I opened my laptop and pulled up a presentation I'd been working on. These are projections for the next 10 years. The impact of climate change on coastal businesses, environmental regulation trends, and sustainable technology market growth. I clicked through the slides, allowing the data to speak for itself. Dad's business model is dying. Mom saw it coming years ago. Isabel leaned in, her business mind whirring. Morgan Communications could adapt, she said slowly. With the right partnership. With your money, I corrected. With your investment, she countered. Think about it, Lexi. We could honor both our parents' legacies, merge the companies, modernize Dad's approach while you remain in control, I asked, raising an eyebrow. That's not happening, Jess. I'm done living in your shadow, trying to prove I'm worthy of the Morgan name. Her expression tightened. Is that what this is about? Revenge? I shut my laptop. No, it's about finally doing things my way. Mom gave me that freedom. Isabel didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. I don't know how to do this without you, Lexi. Dad always said we were stronger together. Dad said a lot of things. I held her gaze, but he was wrong about most of them. After she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped onto the back porch. The evening air smelled like autumn, crisp, fresh, full of change. I pulled out my phone and opened the email I'd been drafting all day. Dear Morgan Communications Board of Directors, my name is Olivia Morgan, and I'm writing to address the recent revelations about my mother's sustainable technology holdings. It was time to make my own moves. Isabel was right about one thing. This was just the beginning. The next morning, another storm arrived in the form of Uncle Marcus, Dad's younger brother, a Morgan Communications board member. He showed up unannounced at my door. Your father would be turning in his grave, he declared, skipping a greeting, letting Morgan Communications' stock price take a hit like this. I let him rant, barely listening. He'd always been Dad's echo, rolling his eyes at my tree-hugger nonsense at family dinners. Are you finished? I asked when he finally paused for breath. Olivia, be reasonable, he said, switching tactics. The family name is exactly what I'm protecting. I folded my arms. While you and Dad clung to outdated business practices, Mom was building something sustainable, something future-proof. His face reddened. Your mother didn't understand business. She was just the woman who outmaneuvered all of you, I offered. The one who built $1 billion empire while you weren't paying attention. His mouth pressed into a hard line. You're making a mistake. No, I said evenly. I'm fixing yours. He left in a fury, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I had a feeling future family gatherings were going to be very interesting, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I had a meeting with a team of environmental scientists struggling to fund their coral reef restoration project. Thanks to Mom, I could help. As I drove, I thought about how much had changed in just a few days. Mom's gift wasn't just financial freedom, it was the power to make a real difference. My phone buzzed. Another text from Isabel. Board meeting tomorrow. Last chance to work together on this. I smiled, thinking of the email I'd sent last night. The plan's already in motion. Good luck with the meeting. I have other commitments. The morning of Morgan Communications board meeting arrived with unexpected news. Their stock had plunged another 15% in pre-market trading. My phone buzzed with a headline from the Wall Street Journal. Morgan Communications faces investor exodus amid sustainability crisis. I was in my home office reviewing research proposals when Isabel burst in, still in her boardroom attire. Her perfectly tailored suit did nothing to hide the fury in her eyes. What did you do? She demanded, slamming a stack of papers onto my desk. Half our major investors are threatening to pull out. See, hey. I glanced at the printouts. emails from Morgan Communications' largest institutional investors, concerns over environmental impact, questions about outdated business practices, warnings about market instability. I leaned back in my chair. Funny how transparency works, isn't it? Isabel's voice sharpened. Transparency? You sent environmental impact reports to our investors. Reports that your research helped compile, not mine, I corrected. Those reports came from independent environmental agencies. I just made sure the right people saw them. Isabel dropped into a chair, her composure fracturing. The board is in panic mode. They're talking about emergency measures, maybe even selling off divisions just to stay afloat. I nodded. They should be worried. Mom's companies are announcing major sustainability initiatives tomorrow. Breakthrough tech that makes Morgan Communications look like a fossil. Isabel exhaled sharply. You're destroying everything Dad built. I met her gaze. No, Jess. Dad destroyed it himself by refusing to adapt. Mom warned him for years about sustainability and modernization. He ignored her. Isabel's fingers tightened into fists. And this is your revenge? This is business. My voice was cold, just like Dad's had always been. Isn't that what he taught us? The market evolves, companies adapt, or they die. Before Isabel could reply, my phone rang. Veronica Harrison, the voice on the other end said. Turn on CNBC. Something's happening. I switched on the TV. Isabel turned, her face draining of color as the breaking news ticker scrolled across the screen. Morgan Communications Board calls emergency session. CEO position under review. Isabel's breath hitched. They can't do this. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm Dad's chosen successor. But they could and they were. The news anchor was already dissecting the board's decision. How Isabel had failed to anticipate market shifts. How Morgan Communications was hemorrhaging investors. How the company had fallen behind on sustainability. Veronica's voice cut through the moment. The board is receiving another packet of documents. Your mother's reports detailing every mistake Morgan Communications made and exactly how they could have adapted. Isabel turned back to me, realization dawning. You planned this. I shook my head. Wrong again, Jess. I don't want Dad's company, but I do want the world to see why his way of doing business doesn't work anymore. My phone buzzed again, an email from Dr. Chen. His team had breakthrough results on the ocean cleanup project. You should get back to your meeting, I said, standing. Sounds like they have a lot to discuss. Isabel rose slowly, squaring her shoulders. This isn't over, Olivia. I gave her an annoying smile. Actually, it is. Mom made sure of that. That afternoon, I drove to the university to meet Dr. Chen and his team. The lab was buzzing with excitement. This could revolutionize ocean cleanup efforts, Dr. Chen explained, showing me the data. And with the funding you've provided, we can scale it globally. I thought about Dad, his disdain for environmental efforts, his obsession with short-term profits over long-term impact. Mom had seen a different future. Now, I was the one making it a reality. That evening, Veronica called again. The board meeting just ended, she said. Isabel's been removed as CEO. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of it settle. They're bringing in an interim leader while they reassess the company's direction. I already knew Isabel wouldn't take it well. How's she handling it? Veronica hesitated. She's threatening legal action, claiming family rights to the position. Let her, I said. The shareholders won't support her, not after today. Veronica sighed. There's more. Some board members are suggesting a merger with your mother's companies. They think it's the only way to save Morgan Communications. I almost laughed. Dad's company begging for salvation from the very environmental initiatives he had once mocked. Not interested. Veronica's response was unsurprising. I figured you'd say that. Soon after hanging up, I opened my laptop, reviewing the final details for tomorrow's press conference. Mom's legacy wasn't just alive, it was thriving, just as she had envisioned. My phone buzzed again. Uncle Marcus. His message was short but pointed. The family name, Olivia. Think about what you're doing to the family name. I paused, thinking about Mom quietly building something meaningful, while Dad and Isabel chased profits and power. I thought of all the years I'd been dismissed, belittled, made to feel like I didn't belong. I glanced at Uncle Marcus's text once more. The family name, Olivia. Think about what you're doing to the family name. I exhaled slowly, my fingers hovering over the keyboard before I typed my response. I am thinking about the family name. I'm giving it a future. Later that night, as I reviewed my speech for the press conference, I found an old photo album tucked away in my desk drawer. The first photo, Mom at my college graduation, beaming with pride as I accepted my marine biology degree. Dad and Isabel hadn't been there. They had a business meeting. Another photo, Mom kneeling in her garden, teaching me about ecosystems when I was little. She had always nurtured my curiosity, encouraged my drive to protect the environment, even when the rest of the family laughed at it. And now I understood. She had been playing the long game all along, preparing me for this very moment. My phone buzzed again, another news alert. Morgan Communications stock hits 5-year low amid leadership crisis. I closed the article and opened my email instead. Dr. Chin's final presentation was waiting for my review. Tomorrow, we would introduce the world to a new way of doing business, one that prioritized sustainability over greed, innovation over stagnation. Isabel might still be clinging to Dad's company, but I had something better. Mom's vision for the future and the power to make it real. This wasn't just the next chapter of my life, it was the next chapter of the Morgan legacy. And this time, it would be written on my terms. Another text interrupted my thoughts. Isabel. They're destroying everything Dad built. Please, Lexi, help me fix this. I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Some things aren't meant to be fixed, Jess. They're meant to be transformed. 1 year after Mom's revelations had turned everything upside down, I stood at a podium overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Behind me, the first of our large-scale ocean cleanup systems was launching a dream I'd carried since graduate school, now realized through Mom's legacy. I took a deep breath to steady myself before addressing the crowd of reporters, scientists, and investors gathered before me. Today isn't just an environmental victory, it's proof that business and responsibility aren't opposing forces. Success isn't measured by quarterly profits alone, but by the legacy we leave for future generations. As I scanned the audience, my eyes locked on Isabel. She sat in the back row, quieter than I'd ever seen her, less polished, more human. Morgan Communications had undergone a complete transformation over the past year, but not in the way Isabel had once envisioned. After her removal as CEO, the board had made the unthinkable decision to dismantle the company. Its divisions had been sold off to organizations with stronger environmental ethics. The Morgan name, once synonymous with corporate power, had taken on an entirely new meaning. When my speech ended and the cleanup system hummed to life, Isabel approached the podium. "Nice speech," she said, her voice softer, stripped of its usual edge. Mom would have been proud. I studied her carefully. No resentment, no defensiveness. "How are you, Jess? Really?" She hesitated, then offered a small, wry smile. "Surviving. It's different not being Isabel Morgan, CEO, but maybe that's not entirely bad." We walked along the shoreline, watching the cleanup system in action. The technology was already showing promising results in early trials. After a long silence, Isabel spoke. "You know what I realized? I spent so many years trying to be exactly what Dad wanted that I never stopped to think about what I wanted." I turned to her. "And what do you want?" She exhaled slowly, watching the waves. "I've been volunteering at a marine education center, teaching kids about ocean conservation. It's kind of amazing seeing their faces light up when they understand something new." A genuine smile broke across my face. "Mom would have loved that." "Yeah," Isabel murmured. "She would have." Later that afternoon, Veronica Harrison walked into my office, carrying the latest reports. My mom's companies had tripled in value, but more importantly, our environmental initiatives were making an immeasurable impact. "There's something else," Veronica said, sliding an envelope onto my desk. "We found this among your mother's old files. She left instructions for it to be delivered today." I unfolded the letter, my breath catching as I saw Mom's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Olivia, If you're reading this, a year has passed since you learned about your inheritance. I hope you've used this time wisely, and from what I've arranged to be monitored, I believe you have. But there's one last thing I need you to understand. Your sister, despite everything, is still your sister. Isabel was just as much a victim of your father's rigid worldview as you were. She simply coped differently. Now that his influence is gone, she might surprise you. I've left instructions with Veronica for a separate fund, one dedicated to environmental education initiatives. If Isabel has shown any sign of change, any willingness to see the world differently, I want you to offer her the chance to manage it. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't in defeating our enemies, but in helping them become better people. I love you, Mom. I sat back in my chair, the weight of Mom's final lesson settling over me. Even now, she was teaching me not about strategy or business, but about grace, wisdom, and the art of forgiveness. That evening, I invited Isabel over for dinner. As we sat on the back porch, the crisp autumn air swirling around us, I told her about the letter and the education fund. You don't have to decide right away, I said, choosing my words carefully. But if you're serious about marine education... See, Isabel cut me off. Why would you trust me with this? After everything? I thought about Mom's words, her belief in second chances. Because sometimes, people deserve a chance to rewrite their story. Isabel swallowed, her eyes welling with unexpected tears. I was horrible to you for years. I helped Dad tear you down because it made me feel more secure in my place in his world. I know, I said simply, but that's not who you have to be anymore. Over the next few months, Isabel threw herself into the work with a determination I hadn't seen from her before. She approached building the education programs with the same intensity she once reserved for corporate takeovers. At first, it felt strange to work together instead of against each other, but Mom had been right. People could change if given the chance. The final piece clicked into place on what would have been Mom's birthday. Isabel and I stood in her garden, the same one I had carefully maintained all these years. Isabel ran her fingers over a rose bush. Mom used to try to get me interested in gardening when we were kids. She'd talk about ecosystems and balance in nature. I never listened. I was too focused on memorizing Dad's business lessons. I smiled. She never gave up on us, not for a moment. Isabel turned to face me, her expression serious. I'm sorry, Lexi, for everything. I was so focused on being Dad's daughter that I forgot how to be Mom's too. For the first time in years, I pulled my sister into a hug. Mom knew what she was doing, I whispered. She saved both of us, just in different ways. That night, I sat in my office reviewing the latest reports from our ocean cleanup projects. On my wall hung 2 photos, one of Mom in her garden, kneeling in the dirt, teaching me about nature, and another of Isabel, teaching a group of children about marine conservation, her face glowing with genuine joy. Mom's legacy wasn't just about money or companies, it was about transformation of the environment, our family, and ourselves. She had played the longest game of all, ensuring not just financial success, but the possibility of healing and growth. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. Kids asked about adding a hands-on marine biology program. Thought you might want to help design it. I smiled, remembering Mom's final letter. Count me in, I replied. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't about winning or losing, it's about changing the game entirely. Mom had understood that all along, and now, finally, so did we. What do you do when you realize that, despite all the years of feeling inferior, your true inheritance isn't just about money, it's about legacy, change, and the power to make a difference? For Olivia, this realization hit when she learned that her mother had quietly built a massive empire, far surpassing the wealth her father had amassed. While Dad had dismissed Olivia's dreams and favored Isabel, his chosen successor, Olivia's mother had been preparing her for something far greater, something that would change the course of not just her life, but the future of the world. The moment Olivia stood in front of Isabel, revealing the truth of their mother's sustainable investments, was a turning point. Isabel, once the golden child, was forced to face the fact that her world was built on outdated ideals, while Olivia's world was just beginning to bloom with purpose. And though Isabel initially fought to maintain control, Olivia stood firm in her vision. Her path was her own. This wasn't about revenge. It was about building something lasting, something that would shape the future. And as Isabel slowly came to understand, it wasn't too late for her to change. The sisterhood that had been fractured by years of competition started to heal as they worked together to honor their mother's true legacy. So, what do you think? Was Olivia right to take control of her future, or do you think she should have tried to find a way to work with Isabel? Have you ever had to confront a situation where the path you were expected to follow didn't align with your true calling? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
The scent of freshly baked cookies wafts through the air as I adjust the perfectly staged throw pillows on the couch. It's the little touches that make all the difference in this business. I step back to admire my handiwork, the open house ready to welcome potential buyers. As I turn to check on the refreshments, I freeze. Walking through the front door, bold as brass, are Ethan and Chloe, my ex-husband and his new wife, the woman he left me for. I plaster on my most professional smile, but inside I'm seething. Ethan smirks as he approaches me. Well, if it isn't Zara, still trying to sell houses, I see. Chloe chimes in, her voice dripping with condescension. I'm surprised you're still in this business, Zara. Ethan told me you were never really cut out for it. I bite my tongue, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. Ethan, Chloe, what a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here. We're looking for a new place, Ethan says, his arm snaking around Chloe's waist. Thought we'd see what you have to offer. The irony isn't lost on me. Years ago, I supported Ethan as he built his law firm, pouring my heart and soul into our marriage, but nothing I did was ever good enough. He grew distant, critical, always finding fault. Determined to contribute and find my own path, I pursued my real estate license. Ethan belittled my efforts at every turn, telling me I was wasting my time. I should have seen the signs then, but I was too blind, too in love. When I discovered his affair with Chloe, his much younger secretary, I confronted him. He denied it, made me feel like I was going crazy. Gaslighting, they call it. I didn't want to believe it, but the truth was staring me in the face. The divorce blindsided me. Ethan filed, citing irreconcilable differences. What a joke. He moved in with Chloe before the ink was dry on the papers. I fought tooth and nail for a fair settlement, but he did everything in his power to leave me with nothing. I hit rock bottom, but I refused to stay there. I poured myself into my work, determined to succeed on my own terms. And I did. I became a top-selling agent, started my own agency. I made it my mission to help women like me, those going through tough times, find their dream homes and rebuild their lives. And now, here I am, face to face with my past. Ethan and Chloe, looking to downsize. I can't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at the thought of their financial troubles. I put on my most professional face and guide them through the house, highlighting its features. Ethan makes snide comments under his breath, but I ignore him. Chloe seems distracted, her eyes darting nervously between us. As we wrap up the tour, I can't resist a little dig. I'm sure I can find you something that fits your budget. My business has been thriving, and I have a lot of high-profile clients. I'm sure I can help you out. Ethan's face reddens, and he lashes out. You got lucky, Zara. You're just riding on my coattails. I smile sweetly. Luck has nothing to do with it, Ethan. I worked hard for what I have, and I did it all without you. Chloe shifts uncomfortably, and I can see the cracks in their perfect facade. This is just the beginning. They have no idea what's in store. The memories flood back as I drive home from the open house. Ethan's smug face, Chloe's cutting remarks. They're like a knife twisting in my gut, reminding me of everything I've tried to put behind me. I think back to our marriage, how I supported Ethan through law school, how I believed in him when no one else did. I was there for him, every step of the way, as he built his firm from the ground up. But the more successful he became, the more distant he grew. Nothing I did was ever good enough. He'd come home late, reeking of alcohol and perfume, and I'd pretend not to notice. I'd make his favorite meals, try to engage him in conversation, but he'd just grunt and retreat to his study. I remember the day I decided to get my real estate license. I was tired of feeling like a burden of relying on Ethan for everything. I wanted to contribute, to have something of my own. When I told Ethan my plans, he laughed in my face. You? A real estate agent? Don't be ridiculous, Zara. You don't have what it takes. His words stung, but I refused to let them deter me. I studied hard, passed my exams, and threw myself into my new career. But Ethan never supported me. He'd belittle my efforts, tell me I was wasting my time. And then came the day I found out about Chloe. I stumbled upon a text message on Ethan's phone, a flirty exchange between him and his secretary. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I confronted him that night, my voice shaking with anger and betrayal. How could you do this to me, Ethan? To us? He looked me straight in the eye and lied. I don't know what you're talking about, Zara. You're being paranoid. There's nothing going on between me and Chloe. I wanted to believe him, desperately wanted it to be true. But deep down, I knew. The late nights at the office, the secret phone calls, the way he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching. I hired a private investigator, and the truth came out. Photos of Ethan and Chloe, caught in the act. I confronted him again, this time with proof, but he just shrugged and said, I guess you weren't enough for me, Zara. I need someone who understands me, who supports my dreams. The divorce was a nightmare. Ethan fought me every step of the way, trying to leave me with nothing. He even had the audacity to claim that I was the one who had been unfaithful. In the end, I walked away with a fair settlement, but I was broken. I had given Ethan the best years of my life, and he had thrown it all away like it meant nothing. I hit rock bottom, but I refused to stay there. I poured myself into my work, determined to prove Ethan wrong. I would show him that I had what it took, that I could succeed without him. And I did. I became a top-selling agent, started my own agency. I made it my mission to help other women like me, those who had been knocked down but refused to stay there. But seeing Ethan and Chloe today, it all comes rushing back. The pain, the betrayal, the anger. I want to scream, to lash out, to make them feel even a fraction of the hurt they caused me. But I won't. I'm better than that. I'm stronger than that. I've built a life for myself, a life that Ethan can never take away from me. As I pull into my driveway, I take a deep breath and let it out slowly. I won't let them get to me. I won't let them win. I'm Zara, and I'm a survivor. And I'll be damned if I let Ethan and Chloe bring me down again. The divorce papers arrive on a Tuesday. I'm sitting at my desk going over some listings when the receptionist buzzes me. Zara, there's a courier here for you. He says it's urgent. I sign for the envelope, my hands shaking as I tear it open. The words jump out at me. Petition for divorce. Ethan's name, bold and accusing, next to the checked box for irreconcilable differences. I feel like I've been punched in the gut. I knew things were bad, but I never thought he'd go this far. I never thought he'd just give up on us. I try to call him, but he's not answering. I leave message after message, my voice growing more and more desperate. Ethan, please, can we just talk about this? Can we try to work it out? But he's gone. I drive by our house, only to find his car missing and a moving van parked out front. The neighbors give me pitying looks as I sit there, engine idling, tears streaming down my face. I find out later that he moved in with Chloe that same day. He didn't even have the decency to wait until the divorce was final. He just couldn't wait to start his new life with her. The divorce is a nightmare. Ethan fights me tooth and nail, trying to leave me with nothing. He hires the best lawyers, the most ruthless ones, and they tear me apart in court. I remember the day of the final hearing, sitting across from him in that sterile courtroom. He wouldn't even look at me, his eyes fixed on Chloe, who sat smugly in the front row. The judge bangs his gavel, and it's over. I walk away with a settlement, but it feels like a hollow victory. I've lost everything that ever mattered to me. I hit rock bottom after that. I can barely get out of bed in the morning, let alone go to work. I start drinking, just to numb the pain. I push away my friends, my family. I don't want their pity, their platitudes. But then, one day I wake up and realize I can't go on like this. I can't let Ethan win. I can't let him destroy me. I pour myself into my work, determined to succeed. I take on every listing, every client. I work harder than I ever have before, fueled by a fire in my belly that won't be quenched, and slowly, painfully, I start to rebuild my life. I find a new apartment, a cozy little place that's all mine. I make new friends, people who don't know my past, who don't look at me with sympathy in their eyes. I focus on my clients, on helping them find their dream homes. I specialize in working with women going through divorces, women who are starting over just like me. I become their champion, their rock. And as the months turn into years, I start to heal. The pain never goes away, not completely, but it becomes bearable. I learn to live with it, to use it as fuel for my ambition. I become a top-selling agent, start my own agency. I surround myself with people who lift me up, who believe in me. I find a new sense of purpose, a new reason to wake up in the morning. But I never forget what Ethan did to me. I never forget the way he tossed me aside like I was nothing. And I vow that one day I'll make him pay. One day I'll show him exactly what he lost when he chose Chloe over me. One day I'll have my revenge. But for now I focus on my work, on my clients, on building the life I deserve. I am Zara, and I will not be broken. Years pass, and I throw myself into my work with a vengeance. I take on every listing, every challenge. I work longer hours than anyone else, determined to prove myself. And it pays off. My sales numbers skyrocket, and I become the top-selling agent in my office. My clients rave about me, recommending me to their friends and family. I specialize in working with women going through tough times, women who are starting over. I become their confidant, their guide. I help them find not just houses, but homes, places where they can heal and rebuild. One of my clients, a single mother named Sarah, hugs me tightly at her closing. "I couldn't have done this without you, Zara," she says, tears in her eyes. "You gave me the strength to start over, to believe in myself again." Her words stay with me, fueling my determination. I know what it's like to feel lost, to feel like you've hit rock bottom. But I also know that it's possible to climb out, to build a new life from the ashes of the old. I start my own agency, surrounding myself with a team of driven, compassionate women. We become known as the go-to agency for women in transition, for those who need a little extra support and understanding. My business thrives, and I become a well-respected figure in the community. I'm invited to speak at conferences, to share my story and my expertise. I even start a mentorship program for young women interested in real estate. But through it all, I never forget about Ethan. I never forget the way he betrayed me, the way he left me broken and alone. I keep tabs on him, on his law firm. I hear rumors of unethical practices, of clients who feel cheated and misused. I bide my time, waiting for the right moment to strike. I know that revenge is a dish best served cold, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. And then one day, opportunity knocks. I'm hosting an open house for a high-end property, a stunning mansion with sweeping views of the city. I'm in the middle of showcasing the gourmet kitchen when I hear a familiar voice behind me. "Zara, I thought that was you." I turn around and there they are, Ethan and Chloe, looking older and more haggard than I remember. Ethan's hair is graying at the temples, and Chloe's face is pinched and sour. "Ethan, Chloe, what a surprise." I keep my voice cool, my smile polite. "I didn't expect to see you here." "We're looking for a new place," Chloe says, her eyes darting around the room. "Something a little more affordable." I raise an eyebrow. "Oh, having some financial trouble, are we?" Ethan scowls, his face reddening. "That's none of your business, Zara. We're just exploring our options." I smile, a slow, predatory grin. "Of course. Well, as you can see, business is booming for me. I've got high-profile clients from all over the city, and my agency is thriving. I'm sure I could find you something suitable." Chloe looks uncomfortable, but Ethan just glares at me. "We don't need your help, Zara. We're doing just fine on our own." I shrug, turning back to the kitchen. "Suit yourself, but if you change your mind, you know where to find me." As they walk away, I can't help but feel a thrill of satisfaction. Ethan may have broken me once, but I've rebuilt myself, stronger and better than ever. And now, seeing him struggling, seeing the cracks in his perfect facade, I know that my time for revenge is coming. I may have lost the battle all those years ago, but I'm determined to win the war. And I'll do it on my own terms, with my head held high and my dignity intact. Ethan and Chloe may have destroyed my past, but they have no power over my future. I am Zara, and I am unstoppable. A few days after the open house, I'm sitting in my office when my assistant buzzes me. "Zara, there's a Chloe here to see you. She says it's urgent." I feel a flicker of surprise, but I keep my voice steady. "Send her in." Chloe walks in, looking nervous and tired. She fidgets with her purse, avoiding my gaze. Zara, I need your help. I lean back in my chair, studying her. Oh, and why would I help you, Chloe? You and Ethan made it pretty clear you wanted nothing to do with me. She takes a deep breath, finally meeting my eyes. Ethan and we're having some financial difficulties. His law firm is struggling, and we're barely making ends meet. We need to sell our house, but we don't know where to start. I can't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at her words. Ethan, the high-powered lawyer, reduced to begging for my help. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. But I keep my face neutral, my voice professional. I see. And you think I'm the right person to help you? Chloe nods, her eyes pleading. You're the best in the business, Zara. Everyone knows that. And I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I'm hoping we can put that behind us, for the sake of our shared history. I want to laugh in her face, to tell her exactly where she can stick her shared history. But I hold my tongue, sensing an opportunity. Very well, I say, standing up and smoothing my skirt. I'll take a look at your property and see what I can do, but I make no promises. Chloe nods eagerly, relief flooding her face. Thank you, Zara. You have no idea how much this means to us. Oh, but I think I do, Chloe. I think I know exactly how much it means to you, and I plan to use that to my full advantage. Over the next few weeks, I work with Ethan and Chloe to get their house ready for sale. I bring in my team of stagers and photographers, transforming the outdated property into a sleek, modern showpiece. But even as I work, I can't help but notice the tension between them. Ethan is short-tempered and irritable, snapping at Chloe over the smallest things. And Chloe seems withdrawn and unhappy, her eyes dull and lifeless. One day, as we're going over some paperwork, Chloe pulls me aside. Zara, can I talk to you for a minute in private? I nod, leading her into a quiet room. She takes a deep breath, her hands shaking. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Ethan, he's not the man I thought he was. I raise an eyebrow, feigning surprise. Oh, what do you mean? Chloe's eyes fill with tears. He's controlling, manipulative. He's been emotionally abusive for years, but I never wanted to admit it. I thought I could change him, but I was wrong. I feel a flicker of sympathy for her, but I push it down. This is the woman who stole my husband, who ruined my life. I can't afford to feel sorry for her. I'm sorry to hear that, Chloe, I say, my voice cool and detached. But what do you expect me to do about it? She looks at me, her eyes pleading. I don't know. I just needed to tell someone. I feel so trapped, so alone. I nod, my mind racing. This is it. This is the opportunity I've been waiting for, the chance to take Ethan down, once and for all. I understand, I say, placing a hand on her shoulder. And I want to help you, Chloe, but you have to be willing to help yourself first. You have to be ready to leave him, to start over. She nods, her face crumpling. I know I do, but I'm scared, Zara. I'm so scared. I squeeze her shoulder, my voice firm and reassuring. I know you are, but you're not alone, Chloe. I'm here for you, and together we'll make sure Ethan gets exactly what he deserves. Over the next few days, I work closely with Ethan and Chloe, showing them potential properties that fit their budget. I'm professional and courteous, but I can't help but notice the growing tension between them. Ethan is short-tempered and impatient, dismissing every house I show them with a sneer. Is this the best you can do, Zara? I thought you were supposed to be the top agent in town. I bite back a retort, keeping my smile firmly in place. I assure you, Ethan, I'm showing you the best properties available in your price range. But if you have something specific in mind, I'm happy to keep looking. Chloe, on the other hand, seems withdrawn and distracted. She barely speaks during our showings, her eyes fixed on the ground. I catch her looking at Ethan with a mixture of fear and resentment, and I know that our conversation from the other day is still weighing heavily on her mind. As we're driving back from yet another unsuccessful showing, Chloe suddenly speaks up from the back seat. Zara, can we talk? Privately? I glance at Ethan, who's scowling out the window. Of course, Chloe. Why don't we grab a coffee? I drop Ethan off at their hotel, promising to meet him later to go over some paperwork. Then I drive Chloe to a quiet cafe, ordering us both a latte. She takes a deep breath, her hands wrapped tightly around her mug. I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other day, Zara, about leaving Ethan, starting over. I nod, keeping my face neutral. And what have you decided? Chloe's eyes fill with tears. I don't know if I can do it. He's all I've known for so long, and I'm scared of what he might do if I try to leave. I reach across the table, taking her hand in mine. Chloe, I know it's scary, but you deserve so much better than this. You deserve to be with someone who treats you with love and respect, not someone who tears you down and controls you. She nods, wiping her eyes with a napkin. I know you're right, but I don't even know where to start. I squeeze her hand, my voice firm and reassuring. Start by talking to a lawyer. Find out what your options are. And in the meantime, document everything. Keep a record of every time Ethan is abusive or controlling. It will help you build a case if you decide to leave. Chloe takes a shaky breath, nodding. Okay, I can do that. I smile at her, feeling a flicker of something that might be hope. And Chloe? Remember, you're not alone. I'm here for you, every step of the way. We finish our coffee and head back to the hotel, where Ethan is waiting impatiently in the lobby. Where have you been? He snaps, glaring at Chloe. I've been waiting for over an hour. I step forward, my voice calm and professional. I apologize, Ethan. Chloe and I had some business to discuss, but I assure you, everything is under control. He scowls at me, his eyes narrowing. It better be. I don't have time for any more of your games, Zara. I smile at him, a slow, predatory grin. Oh, Ethan, you have no idea what kind of game I'm playing. As I walk away, I can feel his eyes boring into my back, but I don't look back. I have work to do. Over the next few weeks, I help Chloe gather evidence of Ethan's abuse. She starts keeping a journal, documenting every cruel word, every controlling action. She takes photos of the bruises on her arms, the holes he's punched in the walls, and all the while, I'm building my own case against him. I reach out to some of his former clients, the ones who felt cheated and misused. I gather evidence of his unethical practices, his shady dealings. I know that the time is coming. The time to take Ethan down once and for all, and when that day comes, I'll be ready. Ready to watch him fall, ready to see the look on his face when he realizes that he's finally met his match. In Zara, the woman he once destroyed, the woman who rose from the ashes, stronger and more powerful than ever before, the woman who will be his ultimate downfall. The day of reckoning arrives sooner than I expected. I'm in my office going over some paperwork when my phone rings. It's Chloe, and she's hysterical. Zara, please, you have to help me. Ethan, he found out about the lawyer. He's furious. He's threatening to hurt me, to ruin me. I'm on my feet in an instant, grabbing my keys and my bag. Chloe, listen to me. Get out of there now. Go somewhere safe. I'll take care of Ethan. I can hear her sobbing on the other end of the line. Okay, I'll go to my sister's place. But Zara, please be careful. He's not in his right mind. I hang up the phone, my heart racing. I know what I have to do. I drive to Ethan's office, my mind churning with possibilities. I know I have to be smart about this, have to play my cards just right. I walk into his office without knocking, my head held high. He looks up from his desk, his face twisting with rage. What the hell are you doing here, Zara? I smile at him, a cold, calculating smile. I think you know exactly why I'm here, Ethan. I know what you've been doing to Chloe. I know about the abuse, the manipulation. He stands up, his fists clenched at his sides. You don't know anything, Zara. You're just a bitter, jealous woman who can't let go of the past. I laugh, a harsh, brittle sound. Oh, Ethan, you have no idea what I'm capable of. I've been watching you, gathering evidence. I know about your unethical practices, your shady dealings. I have enough to ruin you, to destroy everything you've ever worked for. His face pales, and I can see the fear in his eyes. You're bluffing. You don't have anything on me. I reach into my bag, pulling out a thick folder. Oh, but I do, Ethan. I have testimonies from your former clients, the ones you cheated and lied to. I have financial records showing your embezzlement, your fraud. I have photos of Chloe's bruises, the ones you gave her when you lost your temper. I toss the folder onto his desk, watching as he scrambles to pick it up. It's over, Ethan. You're finished. And if you ever come near Chloe again, if you ever lay a hand on her, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life behind bars. He looks up at me, his face contorted with rage and fear. You can't do this, Zara. You can't destroy me. I lean in close, my voice a low, menacing whisper. Watch me. I turn to walk away, but he grabs my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. You'll pay for this, Zara. I'll make sure of it. I wrench my arm away, my eyes blazing with fury. No, Ethan. you're the one who's going to pay. For everything you've done to me, to Chloe, to all the people you've hurt along the way. You're going to pay, and I'm going to be the one to make sure of it. I walk out of his office, my heart pounding in my chest. I know that this is just the beginning, that there will be a long, difficult road ahead. But I also know that I'm ready for it, ready to fight for what's right, ready to take back the power that Ethan stole from me all those years ago. I get in my car and drive to Chloe's sister's place, my mind racing with possibilities. I know that I have to be there for her, have to help her through this difficult time. But I also know that I have to be strong, have to be the one to lead the charge. Because this is my fight, too. This is my chance to make things right, to get the revenge I've been dreaming of for so long. And I won't rest until Ethan is brought to justice, until he's made to pay for all the pain and suffering he's caused. I am Zara, and I am a force to be reckoned with, and heaven help anyone who tries to stand in my way. The fallout from my confrontation with Ethan is swift and brutal. Within days, the news of his unethical practices and abusive behavior is splashed across every newspaper and news site in the city. His law firm crumbles, clients fleeing in droves. His partners distance themselves, desperate to save their own reputations. And Ethan himself is disgraced, his name becoming synonymous with corruption and deceit. I watch it all unfold with a grim sense of satisfaction, knowing that I played a part in his downfall. But I also know that my work is far from over. Chloe files for divorce, and I help her find a new place to live, a small but cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood. She's scared and overwhelmed, but I remind her that she's not alone, that she has people who care about her and want to help. We spend long hours talking, sharing our stories and our pain. I tell her about my own divorce, about how Ethan nearly destroyed me, but how I found the strength to rebuild my life. And she tells me about the years of abuse and manipulation, the constant fear and self-doubt. Together, we start to heal, to find a new sense of purpose and hope. Chloe enrolls in therapy, starts taking classes to finish her degree, and I throw myself into my work, determined to make a difference in the lives of other women who have been through similar struggles. Months pass, and life starts to settle into a new normal. Ethan is a distant memory, a cautionary tale of what happens when power and ego go unchecked. But then one day, I receive a phone call that changes everything. It's Ethan, and he's begging for my help. "Zara, please," he says, his voice desperate and broken. I know I have no right to ask, but I don't know where else to turn. I'm losing everything, my career, my reputation, my freedom. I need your help. For a moment, I'm tempted to hang up, to leave him to suffer the consequences of his actions. But then I remember something my therapist once told me about the power of forgiveness, about how holding on to anger and resentment only hurts ourselves in the end. So I take a deep breath, and I make a decision that surprises even me. Okay, Ethan, I'll help you, but not for you, for me, because I need to let go of the past, to move on with my life. We meet at a coffee shop, and I listen as he pours out his heart, telling me about his regrets, his fears, his desperate desire to make things right. And as I listen, I feel something shift inside me, a sense of closure and release. I offer him some advice, some resources for getting help and making amends, and then I stand up to leave, feeling lighter than I have in years. "Thank you, Zara," he says, his eyes filled with tears. "I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it nonetheless." I nod, a small smile playing at the corners of my mouth. Take care of yourself, Ethan. And remember, it's never too late to start over. As I walk out of the coffee shop, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I know that I'll never forget the pain and trauma of my past, but I also know that I've found a way to move forward, to build a new life based on strength, resilience, and hope. I think back to the woman I was all those years ago, the one who was broken and lost, who thought she'd never find her way out of the darkness. And I feel a surge of pride and gratitude for how far I've come, for the person I've become. I am Zara, a survivor, a fighter, a woman who has been through hell and back and come out stronger on the other side. And I know that no matter what challenges life throws my way, I have the courage and the determination to face them head on, to keep moving forward, one step at a time. I take a deep breath as I step out of the car, my hand tightly clasped in Ethan's. The house looms before us, a stark reminder of the years of silence that stretch between Ethan and his father. I squeeze Ethan's hand, offering a reassuring smile. "It's going to be okay," I whisper, though the words feel hollow even to my own ears. Ethan nods, his jaw clenched tight. "Let's just get this over with," he mutters, striding towards the front door. I follow, my heart pounding in my chest as Ethan raises his hand to knock. The door swings open, revealing a man I've only seen in faded photographs. Frank, Ethan's father, stands before us, his face etched with lines of age and bitterness. "Ethan," he says, his voice gruff. "It's been a long time." "Dad," Ethan replies, his tone carefully neutral. "This is Zara, my wife." Frank's gaze shifts to me, his eyes narrowing slightly. "A pleasure," he says, though his tone suggests otherwise. We step inside, the house feeling strangely cold despite the warm summer day. Frank leads us to the living room, gesturing for us to sit. I perch on the edge of the couch, my hands folded tightly in my lap. "So," Frank begins, leaning back in his armchair, "what brings you here after all these years?" Ethan clears his throat, his eyes meeting mine briefly before he speaks. "Zara thought it was time we tried to mend things between us. For the sake of family." Frank scoffs, shaking his head. "Family? You haven't been much of a family to me, boy." I bristle at his words, but Ethan remains calm. "I know we've had our differences, Dad, but I'm here now, aren't I?" Frank grunts, his gaze shifting to the window. "I suppose you are." The conversation lulls, the tension thick in the air. I clear my throat, desperate to break the silence. "Ethan tells me you used to work in sales, Frank. What was that like?" Frank's eyes snap back to me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "It was a job," he says shortly. "Nothing more, nothing less." I nod, sensing that further questions won't be welcomed. We sit in awkward silence for a few more moments before Ethan stands abruptly. "We should get going," he says, his voice strained. "It's a long drive back." Frank nods, rising slowly from his chair. "Don't be a stranger," he says, though his words lack sincerity. We say our goodbyes, the door closing behind us with a heavy thud. As we walk back to the car, I can't shake the feeling that something is off. Frank's demeanor, his cold reception, it all feels wrong somehow. A month later, the phone rings. It's Frank, his voice tinged with desperation. "I need your help," he says, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm sick, and I can't take care of myself anymore. I need to move in with you and Ethan." I freeze, the phone nearly slipping from my grasp. "Move in with us?" After the way he treated Ethan at our visit, I glance at Ethan, seeing the conflicted emotions playing across his face. "We'll have to discuss it," I say finally, my voice trembling slightly. "Can we call you back?" Frank agrees, and I hang up the phone, my mind reeling. I turn to Ethan, my heart sinking at the look of resignation on his face. "He's my father," Ethan says softly. "I can't turn him away." I nod, knowing that Ethan's sense of duty will always win out in the end. But as we begin to make plans for Frank's arrival, I can't shake the feeling that we're making a terrible mistake. The day Frank moves in, I feel a sense of unease that I can't quite shake. Ethan and I help him settle into the guest room, arranging his few belongings and making sure he's comfortable. At first, things seem to be going smoothly. Frank is polite, even charming at times, and I start to think that maybe my initial reservations were unfounded. But as the weeks pass, I begin to notice little things that set off alarm bells in my head. Frank starts making offhand comments about money, hinting at the financial strain he's under. One evening, over dinner, he finally comes out with it. "I hate to ask," he says, his eyes downcast, "but I'm in a bit of a bind. My late wife, she left me with some significant gambling debts. I don't know how I'm going to pay them off." Ethan's fork clatters to his plate, his face etched with concern. "Dad, why didn't you say something sooner? We could have helped." Frank shakes his head, a wry smile on his lips. "I didn't want to be a burden, but now, living here with you, I thought maybe." He trails off, letting the implication hang in the air. I glance at Ethan, seeing the wheels turning in his head. "We can cover the debts," Ethan says finally, "and you can stay here with us, save on living costs. It's the least we can do." I open my mouth to protest, but the words die on my lips. How can I argue with Ethan's generosity, his desire to help his father? So I nod, forcing a smile onto my face. "Of course," I say, "we're family after all." Frank's face breaks into a grin, and he reaches across the table to clasp Ethan's hand. "Thank you, son. You don't know how much this means to me." But as I watch the exchange, I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. There's a glint in Frank's eye, a calculating edge to his smile that makes my skin crawl. The next few weeks are a blur of financial discussions and budget adjustments. Ethan insists on paying off Frank's debts in full, even though it means dipping into our savings. I try to voice my concerns, but Ethan waves them away. "He's my father, Zara," he says, his voice firm. "I can't just turn my back on him." I nod, swallowing my objections. But as the days pass, I start to notice a change in Ethan. He seems distracted, distant, as if he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. One evening, he comes home late from work, his face drawn and tired. I'm in the kitchen, preparing dinner, when he walks in and slumps into a chair. "I quit my job today," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I nearly drop the spoon I'm holding, my heart leaping into my throat. "What? Why?" Ethan runs a hand through his hair, his eyes meeting mine. "I want to start a nonprofit, Zara. I want to make a difference in the world." I stare at him, my mind reeling. A nonprofit? Now, when we're already stretched thin financially? But before I can voice my concerns, Frank walks into the kitchen, his face twisted into a scowl. "A nonprofit?" he sneers, his voice dripping with disdain. "How are you going to support us on that, boy? You think your little dream is more important than taking care of your family?" Ethan flinches as if he's been slapped, his face flushing with shame. "I just thought—" "You thought wrong," Frank snaps, cutting him off. "You're being selfish, Ethan. You can't afford to chase your dreams when you have responsibilities." I watch as Ethan seems to shrink before my eyes, his shoulders slumping in defeat. And in that moment, I realize the truth. Frank isn't here because he needs our help. He's here to manipulate us, to bleed us dry and break us down, and I'll be damned if I let him get away with it. The days turn into weeks, and Frank's presence in our home becomes increasingly suffocating. He seems to take pleasure in belittling Ethan at every turn, constantly reminding him of the financial strain his nonprofit is putting on our family. I try to shield Ethan from the worst of it, but Frank's words have a way of worming their way into his mind. I watch as my once confident husband starts to doubt himself, his dreams slowly crumbling under the weight of his father's disapproval. One evening, I overhear Frank talking to Ethan in the living room. His voice is loud, carrying easily through the thin walls. "You're a failure, Ethan," he says, his tone dripping with contempt. "You think you can change the world with your little nonprofit? You can't even take care of your own family." I feel a surge of anger rising in my chest, and I storm into the room, my eyes blazing. "That's enough, Frank," I snap, my voice trembling with rage. "You have no right to speak to Ethan that way." Frank turns to me, his face twisted into a sneer. "Stay out of this, Zara. This is between me and my son." But I refuse to back down. "Ethan is my husband," I say, my voice growing stronger with each word, "and I won't let you tear him down like this." Frank scoffs, shaking his head. "You don't understand, girl. I'm trying to help him, to make him see the error of his ways." I laugh, the sound harsh and bitter. "Help him? By crushing his dreams and making him feel worthless? That's not help, Frank. That's abuse." Ethan looks up at me, his eyes wide with surprise. I can see the gratitude in his gaze, the relief at having someone stand up for him. But Frank isn't finished. "You think you're so smart, don't you, Zara?" he says, his voice low and menacing. "You think you know what's best for Ethan? Well, let me tell you something. I'm his father, and I know what's best for him. And what's best is for him to give up this foolish dream and focus on taking care of his family." I shake my head, my heart breaking for Ethan. "You're wrong, Frank. Ethan's dream is what makes him who he is. It's what drives him, what gives him purpose, and I won't let you take that away from him." Frank's face darkens, and for a moment, I think he might lash out at me, but instead he turns and stalks out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I turn to Ethan, my heart aching at the defeated slump of his shoulders. "I'm so sorry," I whisper, pulling him into my arms. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this." Ethan clings to me, his body shaking with silent sobs. "I don't know what to do, Zara," he says, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "I feel like I'm being pulled in 1,000 different directions." I stroke his hair, my mind racing with possibilities, and then, suddenly, it hits me. The pieces fall into place, and I realize the truth of what's been happening. "Ethan," I say, pulling back to look him in the eye, I think your father is manipulating us. I think he's been planning this from the start. Ethan frowns, his brow furrowing in confusion. What do you mean? I take a deep breath, my mind whirling with the implications of what I'm about to say. Think about it. He shows up out of nowhere, asking for money and a place to stay. He guilt-trips you into quitting your job and starting a nonprofit, knowing it will put a strain on our finances. And now he's constantly belittling you, making you feel like a failure. Ethan's eyes widen, and I can see the realization dawning on his face. You're right, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. But why? Why would he do this? I shake my head, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what we're up against. I don't know, I say, but I intend to find out. The next day, I wait until Ethan leaves for work before confronting Frank. I find him in the living room, lounging in his armchair with a newspaper in his lap. We need to talk, I say, my voice tight with anger. Frank looks up at me, his eyes narrowing. About what? I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation to come. I know what you're doing, Frank. I know you're manipulating Ethan, trying to bleed us dry. Frank's face hardens, and he sets the newspaper aside. I don't know what you're talking about, Zara. I'm just a concerned father, trying to look out for my son. I shake my head, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. No, you're not. You're a liar and a manipulator, and I won't let you get away with it. Frank stands up, his face twisting into a sneer. You don't know anything, girl. You think you can come into my family and start making accusations? You have no idea what you're talking about. I stand my ground, refusing to be intimidated. I know more than you think, Frank. I know about your debts, about how you've been using Ethan to pay them off. Frank's eyes widen, and for a moment I see a flicker of fear cross his face, but then his expression hardens, and he takes a step towards me. You think you're so clever, don't you, Zara? He says, his voice low and menacing. You think you've got it all figured out. Well, let me tell you something. You're right, I am in debt. But it's not from gambling. It's from failed business ventures, investments that went south. I stare at him, my mind reeling with the implications of his words. So, you've been using Ethan to bail you out? To pay off your mistakes? Frank shrugs, a cruel smile playing at the corners of his mouth. What can I say? The boy owes me. I raised him, put a roof over his head. The least he can do is help his old man out in his time of need. I feel a surge of disgust rising in my throat, and I have to fight the urge to slap the smug look off his face. You're despicable, I spit, my voice trembling with rage. You're taking advantage of Ethan's love for you, his sense of duty. You're destroying him, piece by piece. Frank laughs, the sound harsh and grating. Destroying him? Please. I'm making him stronger, teaching him the realities of life, and if he can't handle it, well, that's his problem. I shake my head, my heart breaking for Ethan. You're wrong, Frank. Ethan is one of the strongest people I know, and he doesn't need you, not anymore. Frank's face darkens, and he takes another step towards me. You think you can turn him against me? You think you can take my son away from me? I stand my ground, my chin lifted in defiance. I'm not taking him away from you, Frank. You're doing that yourself, with your lies and your manipulations. Frank's hand twitches at his side, and for a moment I think he might strike me. But instead, he turns away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. You don't understand, Zara, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I have a plan, a way to get out of this mess. I was going to sell the house, force you and Ethan out. I even turned his sister against you, convinced her to take my side. I stare at him, my mind reeling with the depths of his betrayal. You monster, I whisper, my voice trembling with emotion. You would destroy your own family just to save yourself? Frank turns back to me, his face a mask of desperation. I have no choice, Zara. I'm drowning in debt, and I need a way out. I shake my head, my resolve hardening. No, Frank, you do have a choice. You can face the consequences of your actions like a man. You can tell Ethan the truth and beg for his forgiveness. Frank's face twists into a sneer, and he turns away from me. I won't do that, Zara. I can't. I nod, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what I must do. Then I will, Frank. I'll tell Ethan everything, and we'll see how he reacts. But one thing is for sure. You won't be staying in this house any longer. Not if I have anything to say about it. The next few days are a blur of activity. I know I need to act fast, to gather evidence of Frank's betrayal before he has a chance to put his plan into action. I start by secretly recording our conversations, hiding my phone in my pocket and letting it capture every vile word that spills from Frank's lips. He talks about his debts, about his plans to sell the house and leave us with nothing. He even brags about turning Olivia against us, convincing her that we're the enemy. It's sickening to listen to, but I force myself to keep going, to gather as much evidence as I can. I know I'll need it if I'm going to convince Ethan of the truth. Finally, after days of recording, I have what I need. I wait until Ethan gets home from work, then pull him aside, my heart pounding in my chest. "There's something you need to hear," I say, my voice trembling with emotion. I play the recordings for him, watching as his face goes from confusion to shock to anger. He listens in silence, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. When the last recording ends, he looks up at me, his eyes blazing with fury. "I can't believe it," he whispers, his voice hoarse with emotion. "My own father betraying me like this." I nod, my heart breaking for him. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I know how much you love him, how much you wanted to believe in him." Ethan shakes his head, his jaw clenched tight. "No, Zara, you were right all along. He's been using me, manipulating me, and I let him do it." I reach out and take his hand, squeezing it gently. "It's not your fault, Ethan. He's your father, and you wanted to believe the best of him. But now we need to focus on protecting ourselves, on getting away from him before he can hurt us anymore." Ethan nods, his eyes hardening with resolve. "You're right. We need to sell the house, move out before he realizes what's happening." We spend the next few days in a flurry of activity, contacting real estate agents and packing up our belongings. We work in secret, but I was careful not to let Frank catch on to our plans. Finally, the day arrives. We found a buyer for the house, and everything is in place for us to move out. I wait until Frank leaves for one of his mysterious errands, then call Olivia, my hands shaking as I dial her number. "Olivia, it's Zara," I say when she answers. "There's something you need to hear." I play the recordings for her, my heart pounding as I wait for her reaction. At first, there's only silence on the other end of the line. Then I hear a sharp intake of breath, followed by a string of curses. "That bastard," Olivia says, her voice trembling with anger. "I can't believe I let him manipulate me like that." I feel a surge of relief wash over me, and I let out a shaky breath. "It's not your fault, Olivia. He's good at what he does. But now we need to stand together to make sure he can't hurt anyone else." Olivia agrees, and we spend the next hour plotting our next move. By the time we hang up, I feel a sense of hope stirring in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we can come out of this stronger than ever. The next day, Ethan and I load the last of our belongings into the moving truck and drive away from the house that has caused us so much pain. As we pull out of the driveway, I catch a glimpse of Frank's face in the rearview mirror. He looks shocked, angry, and maybe even a little afraid. But I don't let myself feel sorry for him. He made his choices, and now he has to live with the consequences. And as for Ethan and me, we have a whole new life ahead of us, one free from lies and manipulation. And I know deep in my heart that we're going to be just fine. We're barely settled into our new apartment when the phone rings. It's Frank, his voice tight with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Ethan?" he shouts, his words slurring together. "You can't just sell the house and leave me with nowhere to go." Ethan takes a deep breath, his hand clenching the phone so tightly his knuckles turn white. "It's done, Dad. The house is sold, and we're not coming back." Frank lets out a string of curses, his voice rising with each word. "You ungrateful little bastard. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" I see the pain flash across Ethan's face, and I reach out to take his hand, squeezing it gently. He looks at me, his eyes filled with gratitude, and turns back to the phone. "You haven't done anything for me, Dad. You've been using me, manipulating me for your own gain, and I'm done letting you control my life." Frank scoffs, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think you're so smart, don't you, Ethan? You think you can just walk away from me? From your family?" Ethan's jaw clenches, and I can see the anger building in his eyes. "You're not my family, Dad. Not anymore. A real family doesn't lie and cheat and steal from each other." There's a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment I think Frank might have hung up. But then his voice comes through the speaker, low and menacing. "You'll regret this, Ethan. You and that bitch wife of yours. You think you can just walk away from me? You have no idea what I'm capable of." I feel a chill run down my spine at his words, but Ethan doesn't flinch. "I know exactly what you're capable of, Dad. And that's why we're walking away. You can't hurt us anymore." He hangs up the phone, his hand trembling slightly as he sets it down on the table. I wrap my arms around him, holding him close as he takes a shuddering breath. "I'm so proud of you," I whisper, my voice thick with emotion. "You did the right thing, Ethan. You stood up to him, and you won." Ethan nods, his eyes filling with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you, Zara. You gave me the strength to fight back, to take control of my life." I smile, brushing a tear from his cheek. "We did it together, Ethan, and we'll keep doing it together, no matter what comes our way." The next few days are tense, as we wait for Frank to make his next move. But as the weeks pass and nothing happens, we start to relax, to settle into our new life. And then, one day, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find Olivia standing there, her face streaked with tears. "I'm so sorry, Zara," she whispers, her voice trembling. "I should have believed you from the start. I should have known that Dad was lying to me." I pull her into a hug, my own eyes filling with tears. "It's okay, Olivia, you're here now, and that's all that matters." We spend the next few hours talking, catching up on all the time we've lost. Olivia tells us about her own struggles with Frank, about how he's been trying to turn her against us for years. "But I see the truth now," she says, her voice filled with determination, "and I'm not going to let him control me anymore. I'm done being his pawn." Ethan nods, his eyes shining with pride. "We're in this together, Olivia. All of us. We'll stand up to him, and we'll win." As the sun sets outside our window, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. We've been through so much, Ethan and I, but we've come out stronger on the other side. And with Olivia by our side, I know that nothing can stop us now. We're a family, a real family, and we'll face whatever comes our way together. A few days later, we get another call from Frank. This time it's Olivia he's after, his voice desperate and pleading. "Olivia, sweetheart, you have to help me," he begs, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm in trouble, and I need a place to stay. You're my only hope." Olivia's face hardens, and she grips the phone tighter. "No, Dad, I'm not going to help you. Not after everything you've done." Frank's voice rises, his anger palpable even through the phone. "You ungrateful little brat. I raised you. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me?" Olivia takes a deep breath, her eyes flashing with determination. "You didn't give me anything, Dad. You took from me, you manipulated me, you tried to turn me against my own brother, and I'm done letting you control my life." There's a long pause, and then Frank's voice comes through the speaker, low and menacing. "You'll regret this, Olivia. You and your brother and that bitch wife of his. You think you can just turn your back on me? You have no idea what I'm capable of." But Olivia doesn't flinch. "I know exactly what you're capable of, Dad. And that's why I'm saying no. You can't hurt me anymore. And you can't hurt Ethan and Zara either. We're done with you." She hangs up the phone, her hand shaking slightly as she sets it down. Ethan wraps an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I'm so proud of you, Olivia," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "You did the right thing." Olivia nods, leaning into his embrace. "I couldn't have done it without you and Zara. You showed me what real love looks like, what a real family is supposed to be." I feel my own eyes fill with tears as I watch them, my heart swelling with love and pride. We've been through so much together, the three of us, but we've come out stronger on the other side. The next day, Ethan and I make a decision. We're going to use the money from the sale of the house to pay off Frank's debts, to free ourselves from his grip once and for all. We contact his creditors, explaining the situation and offering to settle his debts in full. It's not easy and it takes a big chunk out of our savings, but in the end, it's worth it. We meet with Frank one last time in a neutral location with Olivia by our side. He looks haggard, his eyes bloodshot and his clothes rumpled. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice hoarse and defeated. Ethan steps forward, his chin held high. "We're here to tell you that your debts have been paid, Dad. You're free and clear." Frank's eyes widen, and for a moment, I see a flicker of hope cross his face. But then, his expression hardens and he narrows his eyes. "What's the catch?" he asks, his voice dripping with suspicion. I step forward, my own voice steady and clear. There is no catch, Frank. We paid off your debts because we wanted to be free of you, once and for all. But that freedom comes at a price. You're on your own now, and you'll have to find your own way in the world. Frank's face crumples, and for a moment, I almost feel sorry for him. But then I remember all the pain he's caused, all the lies he's told, and my sympathy vanishes. You can't do this to me, he whispers, his voice breaking. I'm your father, Ethan. You can't just abandon me. Ethan shakes his head, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. You stopped being my father the moment you chose to lie to me, to manipulate me for your own gain. And now, you have to face the consequences of your actions. We turn to leave, our hearts heavy, but our heads held high. As we walk away, I hear Frank's voice behind us, a broken whisper that tears at my heart. I'm sorry, he says, his words barely audible. I'm so sorry. But it's too late for apologies, too late for forgiveness. We've made our choice, and we're not looking back. Months pass, and life goes on. Ethan and I settle into our new routine, our new life together. His nonprofit takes off, and I watch with pride as he pours his heart and soul into making a difference in the world. Olivia becomes a regular fixture in our lives, stopping by for dinner and movie nights, her laughter filling our home with warmth and joy. It's like we've always been this way, a family bound by love and trust, not by blood or obligation. But even as we move forward, the shadow of Frank still lingers. Ethan tries to hide it, but I can see the pain in his eyes whenever his father's name is mentioned, the guilt that still weighs heavy on his heart. One day, I come home from work to find Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. I rush to his side, my heart pounding with worry. What's wrong? I ask, my voice trembling. Is it your dad? Did something happen? Ethan looks up at me, his eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot. I talked to Olivia today. She said Dad's not doing well. He's living in some run-down apartment, barely getting by on Social Security. She thinks we should reach out to him, try to make amends. I feel a flare of anger at the mention of Frank, but I push it down, focusing on Ethan's pain. What do you want to do? I ask, my voice gentle. Ethan shakes his head, his eyes filling with tears. I don't know, Zara. Part of me wants to help him, to be the bigger person, but another part of me is still so angry, so hurt by what he did. I don't know if I can forgive him. I take his hand in mine, squeezing it gently. You don't have to forgive him, Ethan. What he did to you, to us, is unforgivable. But maybe you can find a way to let go of the anger, to move on with your life. Ethan nods, his jaw clenching with determination. You're right. I need to let go, to focus on the future, not the past. We decide to reach out to Frank, to offer him a small monthly stipend to help with his expenses. It's not much, but it's a start, a way to ease the guilt that still weighs on Ethan's heart. But when we try to contact him, we're met with silence. Calls go unanswered, emails bounce back undeliverable. It's like Frank has disappeared, vanished into thin air. Weeks turn into months, and still, there's no word from him. Olivia tries to track him down, but even she comes up empty-handed. It's like he's gone, a ghost haunting the edges of our lives. And then one day, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find a man standing there, his face lined with age and sorrow. I'm sorry to bother you, he says, his voice hesitant, but I'm looking for Frank Johnson. I'm his landlord, and I haven't seen him in weeks. I was hoping you might know where he is. I feel a chill run down my spine at his words, a sense of dread settling in the pit of my stomach. I'm sorry, I say, my voice shaking. We haven't heard from Frank in months. Is everything okay? The man shakes his head, his eyes filled with pity. I'm afraid not. Frank's apartment was a mess when I went in there. It looks like he hasn't been taking care of himself. I found a bunch of empty bottles, some pills scattered on the floor. I think he might be in trouble. I nod, my heart heavy with sorrow. Thank you for letting us know. We'll do what we can to find him, to get him the help he needs. But even as I say the words, I know it's too late. Frank is gone, lost to his own demons, his own mistakes, and all we can do is pick up the pieces to try to build a life without him. As I close the door, I feel a sense of sadness wash over me. But I also feel a sense of hope, a sense of possibility. We've been through so much, Ethan and I, but we've come out stronger on the other side. And whatever the future holds, I know we'll face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. because that's what family does. That's what love is all about. Zara, what the hell is this? I demanded, holding up the shredded remains of my late mother's quilt. Zara smirked, her green eyes glinting with malice. Oops, my scissors slipped. Guess you'll have to toss out that ratty old thing now, Camille. It's not like it belonged in this house anyway, just like you. I stood there, my hands shaking with rage as I clutched the tattered fabric. This quilt was the last piece of my mother I had left, a cherished memento of the love and warmth she always provided. And now, thanks to my spiteful teenage sister-in-law, it was ruined. But I shouldn't have been surprised. This was just another day in the Hawthorne household, where I was constantly reminded that I would never truly belong. As I looked around the lavish penthouse with its sleek modern furnishings and breathtaking city views, I felt like an outsider, an intruder in my own home. I had given up everything, my career as a fashion designer, my independence, my identity, to be with Jackson, to be the perfect society wife. But no matter how hard I tried, his family made it clear I would never be good enough. What's going on in here? Olivia, my mother-in-law, strutted into the room, her critical gaze sweeping over me. Camille, I thought I told you to have the laundry finished by noon. Honestly, it's not that hard. What do you even do all day? I bit my tongue, swallowing the retort that bubbled up, that I spent my days cooking, cleaning, and catering to her every whim, that I poured my heart into being the homemaker she demanded, even as she belittled my every effort. I was just about to get to it, Olivia, I said evenly, but then I found this. I held up the destroyed quilt, my eyes burning with unshed tears. Zara, Oh, that old thing? Olivia cut me off with a dismissive wave. It was an eyesore anyway. Zara did you a favor getting rid of it. She turned to her daughter with an approving smile. Good job, sweetheart. This house has no room for Camille's second-hand rags. Zara preened under the praise, shooting me a triumphant smirk. I opened my mouth to protest, but just then Jackson walked in. What's with all the commotion? He asked, loosening his tie. His eyes fell on the quilt in my hands, and he frowned. Is that your mother's blanket? What happened to it? Your sister destroyed it, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. On purpose, and your mother is congratulating her. Jackson sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Cam, I'm sure it was an accident. Don't make a big deal out of it. An accident? Was he serious? I stared at him, searching his face for any hint of the man I fell in love with, the man who promised to always stand by my side. But lately, that man was getting harder and harder to find. You're taking their side? I asked incredulously. Again, Jackson, this quilt was priceless to me. It was all I had left of my mother, and now it's gone. It's just a blanket, Camille, he said impatiently. I'll buy you a new one, a nicer one. Just let it go, okay? Let it go. That's what he always said. Every time his family disrespected me, every time they made me feel small and worthless, he told me to let it go, to be the bigger person. But as I stood there, surrounded by the people who were supposed to be my family, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep shrinking myself to fit into their narrow expectations. I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness, my very sense of self, for a man who wouldn't even stand up for me. Something inside me snapped, a hidden reserve of strength and resolve I didn't know I had. I dropped the ruined quilt and squared my shoulders, meeting Olivia's icy glare head-on. No, I said firmly, I won't let it go. Not this time. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done playing by your rules. From now on, I'm standing up for myself, with or without your support. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out, my head held high. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. I was done being a doormat in my own life. It was time to take back control, no matter the cost. The confrontation with Zara and Olivia left me shaking with anger and humiliation. I couldn't believe the cruelty they were capable of, destroying the one thing I cherished most. And Jackson, my supposed partner, had once again failed to stand up for me. I stormed into our bedroom, hot tears stinging my eyes. I yanked open the closet door, grabbing a suitcase and tossing clothes haphazardly inside. I couldn't stay here another minute, not with these vipers who delighted in tearing me down. What do you think you're doing? Jackson's voice cut through the room, sharp and accusatory. I whirled around, my heart pounding. I'm leaving, Jackson. I can't do this anymore. I won't. He scoffed, crossing his arms. Don't be dramatic, Camille. It was just a stupid quilt. It was my mother's quilt, I shouted, my voice cracking. The only piece of her I had left, and your sister destroyed it on purpose, while your mother cheered her on. They didn't mean anything by it, he said dismissively. You're overreacting as usual. I stared at him, incredulous. Overreacting? Are you kidding me? Your family has done nothing but belittle and demean me from the moment I stepped into this house, and you've let them. What do you want me to do, Camille? He snapped. They're my family. I can't just turn my back on them. But you can turn your back on me, I retorted. Your wife? The mother of your child? He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. You knew my family could be difficult. Difficult? I laughed bitterly. They're monsters, Jackson, and you're just as bad for enabling them. His face hardened, his eyes turning to ice. Watch yourself, Camille. Remember, I'm the one who gave you this life. This luxurious penthouse, the clothes on your back, the food on your plate. Without me, you're nothing. His words hit me like a slap. Is that really how he saw me? As some charity case he had deigned to rescue from a life of mediocrity? Well then, I guess it's a good thing I'm leaving, I said coldly. I'd rather have nothing than spend another second with you and your toxic family. I zipped up the suitcase, brushing past him, but he grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back, he hissed. I'll make sure you never see Mia again. I'll bury you in so much legal red tape you'll be destitute and alone. Is that what you want? Fear seized my heart at the thought of losing my daughter, of being cut off from the one pure, untainted love in my life. But then something caught my eye. Peeking out from under the bed was a scrap of red lace. With a sinking feeling, I reached down and pulled out a skimpy thong, one that definitely didn't belong to me. What the hell is this? I demanded, holding up the offending undergarment. For a split second, panic flashed across Jackson's face, but he quickly composed himself, snatching the thong from my hand. It's nothing, he said smoothly, probably just something of Zara's that got mixed up in the laundry. Bullshit, I spat. Zara wouldn't be caught dead in La Perla, but you know who would? I stepped closer, my voice dripping with venom. Your secretary, Lily. He blanched, confirming my suspicions. The late nights at the office, the whispered phone calls, the designer gifts he claimed were for clients. It all made sense now. How long? I asked, my voice eerily calm. How long have you been screwing her behind my back? Camille, I can explain, he started, but I cut him off with a harsh laugh. Save it, I said, grabbing my suitcase. I'm done. With you, with this sham of a marriage, with this entire fucked-up family, you can have your little mistress. But I'm taking Mia, and I'm taking you for everything you're worth. I strode out of the room, my head held high, even as tears streamed down my face. I had lost my mother's quilt, my dignity, my faith in the man I loved. But I refused to lose myself. This was war, and I was ready to fight like hell. With shaking hands, I rifled through the drawers of Jackson's mahogany desk, my heart pounding in my ears. I needed proof of his infidelity, something tangible to use against him in the divorce proceedings. Beneath a stack of financial reports, I found it. A small, black velvet box. My stomach lurched as I flipped it open, revealing a stunning diamond bracelet. The kind of bracelet you give to a mistress, not a wife. I snapped a photo with my phone, then kept digging. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, email printouts, all painting a sordid picture of Jackson's extramarital activities. He had been lavishing Lily with gifts and clandestine getaways, all while treating me like a burden. Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce. How dare he? How dare he betray me, humiliate me, make me feel like I was the problem when he was the one stepping out on our marriage? I thought back to all the times he had critiqued my appearance, making snide comments about my post-baby body. The way he would roll his eyes when I talked about my fashion blog, dismissing it as a silly hobby. He had chipped away at my self-esteem, piece by piece, until I barely recognized myself. But now I saw him for what he truly was. A manipulative, selfish bastard who cared only about his own pleasure and status. Well, I was done being his trophy wife, his arm candy, his doormat. I gathered up the evidence, stuffing it into my purse. Then I marched into the living room where Jackson was pouring himself a scotch, acting like he didn't have a care in the world. "You son of a bitch," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" He looked up, his expression a mix of annoyance and boredom. "Do what, Camille? What are you babbling about now?" I threw the credit card statements at his feet, watching as they fluttered to the ground. "I know about Lily. I know you've been cheating on me." For a moment he looked stunned, then his face twisted into an ugly sneer. "So what if I have? Can you blame me? Look at you, Camille. You let yourself go. You're not the woman I married." His words sliced through me like a knife, but I refused to let him see me crumble. Not anymore. "No, I'm not," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I'm better, because I'm done letting you treat me like garbage. I'm done being your wife, your punching bag, your fucking servant." I pulled out my phone, showing him the photo of the diamond bracelet. I wonder what the tabloids would make of this. The great Jackson Hawthorne caught showering his secretary with jewels while his wife raises his child. His face paled, his eyes darting to the phone. "Camille, let's not be hasty. We can work this out. I can change, I swear." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "It's too late for that. I've already filed for divorce, and I'm going for full custody of Mia." "You can't do that," he sputtered, his fists clenching. "I won't let you take my daughter from me." "You should have thought of that before you stuck your dick in your secretary," I spat. "I'm done being your doormat, Jackson. I'm taking Mia, and I'm taking half of everything. You can rot in hell with your precious family for all I care." I turned to walk away, but his next words stopped me cold. "You'll never make it on your own," he sneered. "You're nothing without me, Camille. Just a washed-up wannabe designer with a stupid little blog. You need me." I whirled back around, getting right in his face. "Watch me," I hissed. "I'm going to build a life for myself and Mia, a better life than you ever gave us. And when I'm a success, when my designs are walking down runways and gracing magazine covers, I'll make sure the whole world knows the truth about you, about the kind of man you really are." With that, I stormed out of the penthouse, Mia clutched tightly in my arms. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was never looking back. Jackson Hawthorne and his vicious family could burn in the hell they'd made for themselves. I was free, and I was ready to rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. Months had passed since I walked out on Jackson and his toxic family. Mia and I had settled into a small but cozy studio apartment, far from the glittering penthouse that had been our gilded cage. Money was tight, but we were making it work. I poured my heart into my fashion blog, determined to turn it into something more, a career, a future, a way out of the mess my life had become. I was just putting Mia down for a nap when a frantic knocking sounded at the door. Frowning, I tiptoed over and peeked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. Zara. For a moment, I considered pretending I wasn't home. The last thing I needed was more drama from the Hawthorns. But something in Zara's expression, a desperate, haunted look I had never seen before, made me unlock the door. "Zara?" I said cautiously. "What are you doing here?" She pushed past me, her eyes wild. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, her voice breaking. "Everything's fallen apart, Camille. It's all gone to shit." I closed the door, my heart pounding. "What are you talking about? What's happened?" The story spilled out of her in fits and starts, each revelation more shocking than the last. After the divorce, Walter's shady business dealings had come to light. Embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. He had been running a criminal empire right under everyone's noses. The FBI had seized all their assets, leaving the family penniless and disgraced. Jackson, unable to cope with the shame and pressure, had turned to alcohol and gambling. He had blown through what little money they had left, racking up massive debts to some very dangerous people. Olivia, always so poised and put together, had suffered a nervous breakdown and was currently in a psychiatric ward. And Zara? She had been unceremoniously kicked out of her elite private school, her tuition left unpaid. She was broke, homeless, and utterly alone. "I didn't know where else to turn," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I know I've been awful to you, Camille. I know I don't deserve your help, but I have nowhere else to go." I stared at her, conflicting emotions warring inside me. A part of me, the part that still stung from her cruelty, wanted to turn her away, to let her suffer the consequences of her actions. But another part, the part that knew how it felt to be lost and scared, couldn't bear to leave her on the streets. "You can stay here," I said finally, my voice tight, "for a little while, until you figure something out." Her shoulders sagged with relief, fresh tears spilling over. "Thank you," she breathed. "Thank you so much, Camille. I swear, I'll make it up to you. I'll be better, I promise." I held up a hand, cutting off her tearful rambling. "Let's get one thing straight, Zara. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Mia. She deserves to have her aunt in her life, even if that aunt is a spoiled brat who made my life hell." Zara flinched at my harsh words, but nodded. "I understand, and I'm sorry, Camille, for everything." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I know, but sorry doesn't erase the past. If you're going to stay here, there will be rules, boundaries. You will treat me with respect, pull your weight around the apartment, and be a positive influence on Mia. If you can't do that, then there's the door." She nodded vigorously, her eyes wide. "I will, I promise. I'll do whatever you say." "Good," I said, my tone softening slightly. "Then let's get you settled in. It's not much, but it's home." As I showed Zara to the pull-out couch that would be her bed, I couldn't help but marvel at the twists and turns life had taken. A year ago, I had been the one groveling at the Hawthorns' feet, desperate for scraps of their approval. Now they were the ones crawling to me for help. Their world shattered beyond repair. It was a bittersweet victory, one that tasted of ashes and regret. But as I watched Zara curl up on the couch, her face etched with gratitude and exhaustion, I knew I had made the right choice. Not for her, but for me. For the person I wanted to be, the person my mother had raised me to be. Someone who could find compassion, even in the face of cruelty. Someone who could rise above the pain and pettiness and choose to be better. Someone who could finally truly be free. Living with Zara was a test of my patience and resolve. Despite her tearful promises to change, old habits die hard. She was moody, entitled, and prone to lashing out when things didn't go her way. More than once I had to bite my tongue to keep from throwing her out on the street. But I persevered, for Mia's sake. My daughter had lost so much already. Her father, her grandparents, the only home she'd ever known. I couldn't bear to take her aunt away, too, no matter how difficult Zara made things. So I set clear boundaries, laying out the rules of the apartment in no uncertain terms. Zara was to clean up after herself, contribute to the household chores, and watch her language around Mia. If she couldn't follow those simple guidelines, she was welcome to leave. To my surprise, Zara actually made an effort. She tidied the living room without being asked, helped with the dishes, and even entertained Mia while I worked on my blog. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was progress. And my blog, it was finally taking off. My honest, raw posts about my divorce and starting over had struck a chord with readers. My follower count was skyrocketing, and I was getting more sponsored content offers than ever before. But the real game changer came in the form of an email from a major fashion magazine. They had stumbled across my blog and were impressed with my designs. They wanted to feature me in a multi-page spread, showcasing my work to the world. I stared at the email, my heart pounding. This was it. The big break I had been dreaming of. The chance to turn my passion into a real career. With shaking hands, I typed out a reply, accepting their offer. I knew I should be ecstatic, but a part of me was terrified. Putting myself out there, exposing my creations to the judgment of the fashion industry, it was a huge risk. If they hated my work, it could crush my dreams before they even had a chance to take flight. But I couldn't let fear hold me back. Not anymore. I had spent too long playing it safe, shrinking myself to fit into the mold of the perfect wife and mother. It was time to bet on myself, to chase my dreams with everything I had. I threw myself into preparing for the feature, stitching and sketching late into the night. Zara, to her credit, stepped up to help with Mia, keeping her occupied so I could work. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. As the date of the photo shoot approached, I could barely contain my excitement. This was really happening. I was going to be in a magazine, my designs splashed across glossy pages for all the world to see. I was so caught up in my own head, I almost didn't hear the knock at the door. Assuming it was the mailman, I swung it open without checking the peephole. My stomach dropped. There, standing in the dingy hallway of my apartment building, were the last people I ever expected to see. Jackson, Walter, and Olivia. My ex-husband and former in-laws, the people who had made my life a living hell. They looked haggard and worn, their designer clothes rumpled and stained. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and fear. Jackson stepped forward, his bloodshot eyes pleading. "Camille, we need your help. We have nowhere else to go." I wanted to slam the door in their faces, to tell them to go to hell and never come back. But before I could, Walter shouldered his way into the apartment, Olivia and Jackson close behind. "We're moving in," Walter announced, dropping his suitcase on the floor. "You have a spare room, don't you? It'll be just like old times." I stared at them, my mouth hanging open in shock. The audacity, the sheer nerve of these people. To show up at my door, expecting me to take them in after everything they had done. But as I looked at their desperate, defeated faces, I realized something. They had nothing left. No money, no status, no power. They were at rock bottom, just like I had been. And in that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could turn them away, leave them to fend for themselves on the streets, or I could be the bigger person, the person my mother had raised me to be. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Fine," I said, my voice hard. "You can stay, but we're doing this on my terms. And if you cross me, even once, you're gone." "Understood?" They nodded, relief etched on their faces. As they shuffled into the apartment, a sense of grim satisfaction settled over me. The Hawthorns had taken everything from me. My home, my marriage, my self-worth. But now the tables had turned. Now they were the ones at my mercy, and I was going to make damn sure they never forgot it. The Hawthorns settled into my apartment like a plague, infesting every corner with their toxic presence. They critiqued everything from the size of the rooms to the threadbare furnishings, making snide comments about how far I had fallen. I gritted my teeth and bore it, reminding myself that this was temporary. As soon as my feature launched, I would have the means to kick them out and never look back. But living with them was a nightmare. Walter and Olivia commandeered the bedroom, leaving Jackson to sleep on the couch. They treated my home like a hotel, expecting me to wait on them hand and foot. Olivia was the worst, constantly finding fault with my parenting and housekeeping. "Really, Camille," she sniffed, eyeing the dishes in the sink. "I thought you would have learned to keep a cleaner house by now. It's no wonder Jackson strayed." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. It took every ounce of willpower not to throw her designer luggage out the window. Jackson, for his part, mostly avoided me. He spent his days sulking around the apartment, drinking my cheap vodka and muttering about his fall from grace. I caught him eyeing Zara a few times, his gaze lingering on her developing curves. It made my skin crawl. But Zara surprised me. She stepped up in ways I never could have imagined, helping with Mia and standing up to Olivia's barbs. "Back off, Mom," she snapped one evening when Olivia started in on my cooking. "Camille's doing the best she can, which is more than I can say for you." Olivia's face turned an ugly shade of purple, but she shut her mouth. I shot Zara a grateful look, mouthing a silent, "Thank you." As the day of my big photo shoot approached, the tension in the apartment reached a boiling point. I was a bundle of nerves, triple-checking my designs and obsessing over every detail. "I don't know why you're bothering with this silly little hobby," Walter sneered, flipping through my sketches. "It's not like you have any real talent. You should be focusing on finding a rich husband to take care of you and Mia." I snatched the sketches back, my hands shaking with rage. "This is not a hobby," I said, my voice low and fierce. "This is my career, my passion, and I will not let you or anyone else diminish that." Walter scoffed, exchanging a knowing look with Olivia. "Career? Please. You're a washed-up housewife with delusions of grandeur. You'll never make it in the fashion world." I opened my mouth to retort, but Mia's cry from the bedroom cut me off. I shot Walter a venomous glare and hurried to comfort my daughter. As I rocked Mia back to sleep, I felt a surge of determination. I would show them. I would show everyone. I was more than just Jackson Hawthorne's ex-wife, more than a mother, more than a failed socialite. I was Camille Rousseau, a designer, a dreamer, a survivor. And I was going to take the fashion world by storm, no matter what it took. The morning of the shoot dawned bright and clear. I kissed Mia goodbye, leaving her in Zara's capable hands. Then I gathered up my designs and headed out the door, my heart pounding with excitement and nerves. But when I returned home that evening, flush with the success of the shoot, I found the apartment in chaos. Mia was crying, her little face streaked with tears. Zara was nowhere to be seen. And there, in the middle of the living room, were Walter and Olivia. They were surrounded by the tattered remains of my sketches and fabric samples, their faces twisted with malice. "What have you done?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Olivia smiled, a cruel, vicious thing. "We put an end to this foolish pipe dream of yours. Did you really think we would let you succeed? Let you humiliate us even further?" I stared at the ruins of my work, months of blood, sweat, and tears reduced to scraps. I wanted to scream, to rage, to fall to my knees and weep, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not in front of them. Not in front of Mia. So I did the only thing I could. I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and met their triumphant gazes with a steely one of my own. "Get out," I said, my voice calm and cold as ice. "Get out of my house and never come back. You have no power over me anymore." And with that, I took my daughter's hand and walked away, leaving the stunned Hawthorns in my wake. They had tried to break me, to crush my dreams and my spirit. But they had underestimated me. I was Camille Rousseau, and I would rise from the ashes of their cruelty, stronger and more determined than ever. This was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of grim determination. The Hawthorns had destroyed my designs, but they hadn't destroyed me. I would not let their cruelty derail my dreams. I got Mia ready for daycare, kissing her chubby cheeks and promising to be back soon. Then I headed out to meet with the magazine editor, praying that I could salvage something from this mess. But when I arrived at the office, my heart sank. The editor's face was tight with concern, her brow furrowed as she flipped through the tattered remains of my portfolio. "Camille," she said gently, "I'm so sorry, but we can't run the feature like this. The designs are ruined, and we go to print in less than a week. There's just no time to reshoot everything." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. This was my big break, my one shot at making it in the fashion world. And now, thanks to the Hawthorns, it was slipping through my fingers. But I refused to give up. "Not now, not ever. Please," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "I can fix this. I can recreate the designs, work around the clock to make it happen. Just give me a chance." The editor hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "Okay," she said finally. "You have 48 hours. If you can deliver the designs by then, we'll run the feature. But Camille, this is your last chance. Don't let me down." I nodded, my throat tight with gratitude and determination. "I won't, I promise." I raced home, my mind already whirling with ideas. I would have to work nonstop, forgoing sleep and meals to make this happen, but I would do it. I had to. When I burst through the door of my apartment, however, I stopped short. The place was trashed, even worse than before. Furniture overturned, dishes smashed, clothes strewn everywhere. And there, in the middle of the chaos, was Zara. She was huddled on the floor, her knees drawn up to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Zara?" I said softly, kneeling down beside her. "What happened? Where's Mia?" She looked up at me, her eyes haunted. "They took her," she whispered. "Mom and Dad, they came back after you left, demanding to see her. I tried to stop them, but they pushed past me. They said they were taking her away, that you were an unfit mother, that she belonged with them." My blood ran cold. They had taken my daughter. My sweet, innocent Mia, the one pure light in my life. I grabbed Zara by the shoulders, my fingers digging into her skin. "Where did they go? Tell me, Zara. Where did they take her?" She shook her head, fresh tears spilling over. "I don't know. They wouldn't say. But Camille, there's something else." She took a shuddering breath, her next words hitting me like a sledgehammer. "Jackson was with them. He helped them take her." I staggered back, my vision blurring. Jackson. My ex-husband, the father of my child. He had betrayed me in the deepest way possible, siding with his vicious family over his own daughter. But I didn't have time to process the pain, the anger, the sickening sense of betrayal. I had to find Mia. I had to get her back. I turned to Zara, my voice hard as steel. "Pack a bag. We're going to find them, and we're going to bring Mia home. And then—" I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. "Then we're going to make them pay for what they've done." Zara nodded, a flicker of her old fire returning to her eyes. "I'm with you, Camille. No matter what it takes." We set out into the night, two women on a mission. I didn't know where the Hawthorns had gone or how we would find them, but I did know one thing. They had messed with the wrong mother, the wrong woman, and they were about to learn just how far I would go to protect what was mine. This wasn't just about my career anymore, or my pride, or even my revenge. This was about my daughter, my family, and heaven help anyone who stood in my way. It had been 5 years since that fateful night. 5 years since I had rescued Mia from the clutches of the Hawthorns and walked away from their toxic influence for good. In that time, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. My feature in the magazine had been a resounding success, launching my career as a sought-after designer. I had moved Mia and myself into a beautiful townhouse, far from the painful memories of our past. We were happy, healthy, and thriving. But I never forgot what the Hawthorns had done, the scars they had left on my soul. And as I watched their lives unravel from afar, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. Walter and Olivia, once the king and queen of high society, were now divorced and destitute. Walter had been arrested for his financial crimes, his reputation in tatters. Olivia, unable to cope with the shame and scandal, had fled to Europe, where she lived a lonely, bitter existence. Jackson, my charming ex-husband, had drowned in his own vices. His gambling debts had caught up with him, forcing him to sell off every last possession. Last I heard, he was living in a seedy motel room, drowning his sorrows in cheap whiskey. And then there was Zara, my former tormentor, the girl who had made my life a living hell. She had shown up at my door a few months ago, looking thin and haggard, her eyes haunted by the ghosts of her past. "Camille," she had whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am for everything." I had stared at her, this broken shell of a girl, and felt a flicker of pity. "I forgave you a long time ago, Zara," I said softly. "Not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to that anger, that resentment, it was poisoning me from the inside out." She had nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't deserve your kindness, Camille, not after what I did. But I want you to know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to make something of myself, just like you did." I had smiled then, a genuine smile. "I know you will, Zara. You're a Hawthorn, after all. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're survivors." She had left then, her head held high, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. And as I watched her go, I realized that I had finally found the peace I had been searching for all these years. Not through revenge or spite or bitterness, but through forgiveness, through letting go of the past and embracing the future. I looked around my beautiful home, at the photos of Mia and I smiling and laughing, at the racks of clothing bearing my own label. I had built this life for myself, brick by brick, stitch by stitch, and I was proud of it. I thought back to that scared, broken woman I had been all those years ago, the one who had cowered in the shadow of the Hawthorns' cruelty. I barely recognized her now because I was no longer that woman. I was Camille Rousseau, fashion designer, mother, survivor, and I had risen from the ashes of my past like a phoenix, stronger and more radiant than ever before. As I sat down at my desk to sketch out my latest collection, I felt a sense of deep contentment wash over me. I had faced the demons of my past and emerged victorious. I had found my purpose, my passion, my true self. And nothing, not the Hawthorns, not the challenges of single motherhood, not the cutthroat world of fashion, could take that away from me. I was free. I was whole. I was finally truly happy. And as I lost myself in the flow of creation, the fabrics and colors swirling beneath my fingertips, I knew that this was just the beginning of my new life, my new story. A story of resilience, of redemption, of love, a story that was all my own.